I used to adore how Pokemon games looked. Game Freak were masters of crafting some of the most memorable pixel art ever, artistically luring us into these intuitive RPG masterpieces. So what happened? Why does it feel like the mainline games have been stuck visually ever since the transition to 3D? Why don't the games made by the most profitable game franchise of all time look amazing by now? And most importantly, why are Game Freak continually choosing to go down this path? Well, we've all seen how great Pokemon animation can look, be it fan-made proof of concepts or the older Pokemon battle simulation games like Battle Revolution. Amazing animations seem so obvious, like, bro, you have already done it, you've already proved that it's possible, so why not just do it again? Why not have custom animations for every Pokemon, and custom visuals for every move, with gorgeous optimized landscapes to boot? And the simple answer we already all know, that being time and money. The two things that Game Freak seem to have slightly misplaced. It's estimated that only around 200 people work for Game Freak's game division, a team kept tiny to apparently keep the artistic vision of the games going into the future. And in some ways, I can respect that. But in others, it feels like so many things could have been fixed by simply getting more people onto the team. As the years have been marching on, it has become more and more apparent that something is a bit wonky in the Pokemon workflow. Starting with the lackluster idle animations in Gen 6, to the iconic tree texture in Gen 8, and ending with all the bugs and reused textures in Gen 9. Pokemon keeps growing in scope, from 2D to 3D, from route-based to open world, even the number of Pokemon is expanding so much, but one thing has stayed relatively consistent through all that time: Pokemon's very small dev team. Simply compare Pokemon to another Nintendo company, that being Monolith Soft. Those guys make Xenoblade, a series that sells way less than Pokemon, but has close to 100 more employees working for them. Add that to the fact that there's an average 5 years between Xenoblade games compared to Pokemon, which has a 3-year cycle, and it starts to become a little bit more clear why games like Xenoblade, which do sell way worse, always look a little bit better. The lack of manpower begs the obvious question: why don't they just hire more employees with their mountains of cash that they're waiting on? And I think there are two main reasons for this. One, they're doing well enough with a small team and have been doing for years, so they might just be thinking, let's not break what isn't broken. And two, a bigger team may not actually pay off the cost of hiring those people. Let's say that they hire 50 people just to make custom animations for all the Pokemon. Like, we would love that, that would be so sick. But how many more copies would that really sell? Definitely some, and since they reuse animations from game to game, year to year, it seems kind of like a no-brainer to me to splurge when you're initially making Pokemon, and accept that in the future. But in the short to medium term, do these animations really matter? In addition to that, maybe Game Freak could add like 50 other people that help with the graphical fidelity, making everything look fantastic, and these would definitely make the games better for sure, but would they pay for the cost of those who made it possible? And more importantly, would people have just bought the games anyways without these benefits? And a lot of us fans have proven throughout the years, it is likely that we do. It's hard to be a Pokemon fan because Pokemon really doesn't need to make any changes to make the games better. Game Freak can keep pumping out the games until, I guess, we just get bored of the basic formula, which honestly might be never, considering how much we love it and how much nostalgia keeps us playing. But I do, of course, have to question how many sales are being left on the table by the dip in quality recently. On the Switch, they have amazing sales, but I don't feel like they're must-buys. And what if they were? Why can't they sell the same amount of copies of Breath of the Wild or Animal Crossing or Mario Kart? They have a much bigger IP, so why not? And I think that's so frustrating to us long-term fans, what could have potentially been for this series. The games are fun, and the systems have been proven over the years to be enjoyable. It's just the business has decided one thing while the fans really yearn for something else. And that's hard because I don't know what the best choice for them would be to create the maximum amount of revenue possible. Obviously, they've been doing quite well. But still, a gorgeous HD Pokemon masterpiece on the Switch 2 would, at least for me, a lifelong fan of Pokemon, and light up my heart for sure. I'm sure some people are just going to blame the consoles that these games have been on. The 3DS wasn't the best, and the Switch is pretty weak, and I'm sure people have hopium that the visuals on the Switch 2, well, they're gonna look great. But look at Pokemon Legends ZA on Switch 2. Of course, this is a cross-gen title, but yeah, it definitely is an upgrade. Still, and while an enhanced version of Scarlet and Violet will, of course, as well feel better due to the performance increases, do you really think it'll help that much with its looks? Probably not, and that is worrying for the future of this franchise. Not being able to push these games to their limit, of course, comes from, saving money with a small team, but also due to the fact that there just isn't enough time for Pokemon games. Pokemon has such an insane turnaround of products already mentioned, and the company is just so huge that you can't easily push back a Pokemon game or give it way too much more time. Because if you do, the whole machine of merch, of TV shows, of cards, of everything backs up. Millions or even billions of dollars are on the line, and they can't take that huge risk because they're already on top. And when you're on top, there isn't that much to gain, but there is so much to lose. Now, maybe a solution to something like this to make so that they do have enough time for every game and they can really put in all the blood, sweat, and tears that they need to is to kind of copy like the Call of Duty style where you have one team working on one game, and then 3 years later, you have a team starting on the next game, and then it's still a 3-year release cycle, but there's like 6 years put into every single game. I'm not sure if that could work for them. Again, they need to hire way more people, basically doubling their staff, but I feel like that could increase the quality while also still allowing them to release everything that they want to. 3D games just take more time to make them look good, and you may say that Pokemon never was in the forefront of graphics, and I think that honestly is fair, but I feel like 2D games in general are given a lot more slack, letting the player's imagination do a lot more of the heavy lifting. And 3D doesn't really allow that slack nearly as much since, well, us as humans live in a 3D world, and we can more directly compare our lived experiences to what we're seeing on the screen right now. And compared to a lot of the competition, 2D Pokemon, I think in my opinion, it did look quite good. Maybe not the top of the line, but close to there, while 3D does feel further behind than that. Through all of this, I feel like they just weren't quite prepared to go from that 2D to 3D. If you look at a game like Black and White 2, those games look so incredible, so amazing, but it just takes less and they need more. And if you're wondering what maybe I could think of as a potential solution to all of this, as a magical fix to fix everything for the graphics issue of Pokemon, honestly, for me, moving to like a Dragon Quest III Remake 2.5D style game for the mainline old-fashioned Pokemon combat, yo, that would work so well, and it would just kind of make a lot more sense than 3D. The combat does feel a little bit aged, and having a system that matches that style that we can still put our imagination into and enjoy, I don't know, I feel like that just works more in my head. And, of course, they could still make their more side mode games like Legends Arceus or ZA into 3D and have kind of their cake and eat it too. Now, will this have sold as well as 3D games? Who knows? Probably not if I'm being real here. But man, I just personally wish that we could have that style of game again. And maybe that's just my nostalgia speaking, but the 2D art of the old games, they just hit so hard, and I love them. And they could put in the time to make so that every Pokemon could have a pretty cool animation, at least again in black and white. And I would have really loved to see how they could have pushed this game into the future, push this 2.5D into the future, whatever, knowing of course that it would be a lot easier and cheaper to develop than 3D. With all that in mind, I do love Pokemon games, and I honestly don't think that they necessarily have to look very good. I think time has proven that alone, and people spend so much time on Pokemon Showdown, that looks fine, but it's just a battle simulator without much else. And putting this all together, I think that we can all wish for better animations, wish for better graphics, want better visuals, but only time will tell if they ever decide to change their mind and focus on that. Maybe the next generation will come in, they'll have different management, they'll really want to push the graphics as much as they can to prove that the series can become what we've all hoped for, but maybe they don't, and it really is kind of out of our hands. I personally believe that the devs are trying, and we can tell this because the games are still really enjoyable to most people. They're doing the best with what they have. But I also think that the scope of these projects just doesn't really match up with, expectations and reality. Pokemon has proven that they can create amazing visuals, even on the Switch generation, but it does take a long time and it does take a much smaller scope. For example, we have a game like Pokemon Snap, which does look amazing, but you are in a simple track and not an open world at all. While it would be awesome if we had an entire game look as good as Pokemon Snap while also having the gameplay and just the general feel of a game like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, something maybe in the middle of those two is a little bit more reasonable, and I hope that sometime in the future we can get something like that. With all that in mind, I want your guys' own personal opinions about why do you think that Pokemon can't have better visuals, and how you would potentially fix up the modern Pokemon games. And I'd just love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Even through all the drama though, Pokemon has stayed a huge force in gaming, and millions of people love this franchise. And if you'd like to know more about how this franchise stayed on top, well, I have a video right here talking about just that. So I hope you can enjoy that video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.